introduce you as the intro? And we're back.
Here we are.
We are back. Great to have you with me, as always, Evie.
Great to be here, Yvonne. Thank you very much for, hosting this. And hopefully today we are in a less noisy environment. You might hear some cats in the background, but hey, we can't have it all.
we can deal with the cats in the background. That's all good. It's all good. Excellent. So, just as an introduction or reminder, this week we're talking about the real cost of failure. How does it shape your personal growth? So really looking forward to kind of getting into this one, because I have a very clear perspective on it for myself. So it'd be good to have that chat and see where we get to. But I guess, I mean, my initial thing that I just want to throw out is, when we talk about failure, what even is that? What are we talking about? What do you perceive as failure, Evie?
It's hard to speak about failure with a big smile on your face, but it really, the perspective is what makes the difference. And the failure might be a failure, like, as we all know it, something that hasn't gone the way we want it to go. However, it has taken me a while to understand that sometimes failure is a different way towards what you want to achieve, or even something that takes you a different direction that will add to your arsenal of tools, or even to your resilience. And I think that is a big deal. And to me, what failure causes is that we don't necessarily accept it. We think failure is a bad thing. And what is a bad thing and what is a good thing? Because also this black and white thing that, this must be bad, this must be good. Is it really?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. And that's such an interesting piece just there, because when I've reflected on my own journey, which I love to do because it reminds me of just how rich my life has been, the experiences that I've had, but it reminds me that out of every failure, mistake, whatever it is, something else has evolved. And the something else is like, would that have evolved had I not had that activity, that thing happen, that experience? Would that have evolved? So I always look at failure personally. My look at failure is that things happen, don't go according to plan. It may be an opportunity for me to review what I was doing in the first place. Do I need to do it differently? So is there something that needs tweaking? Or actually that this other pathway that could open up may be the very one that I need to get me to where I want to go. And I wouldn't have seen it had this not happened, right? So it's a little bit of really understanding that every failure could be, I'm not going to say that it is in every situation, but it could be the lesson you need to get to the next level of whatever it is or wherever you're going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, a failure, and I will put in inverted commas, is sort of like a nudge, something that tells me, okay, you need to pay more attention. You need to see what you can learn from this. Where is it taking you? Why has it happened? I mean, there are so many questions that come out of that. And the one thing I definitely don't do is beat myself up. I used to do quite a lot of that. So I think that that is the one thing that blinds you. And that is the true cost of failure, beating yourself up. Because you are easily, can lose sight of what exactly it is that you need to learn from what happened.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And it's really easy to fall into that beat yourself up thing. And actually, what you're doing is just adding on top of what's happened, you're just adding another layer. And all that does is it just keeps on moving you further away from the clarity that you really need to know what to do next. So it is, yes, I understand that it almost comes up automatically. Oh, why did I do that? That was so stupid. And, but we have to be able to come back from that and be able to say, okay, even if that's an initial response, and just say, hold on a moment, what what is the situation really telling me? What can I take, and what can I take from it? Maybe something was an absolute disaster and you're thinking, oh my, I never want to go there again. Okay, what are you going to take from it, to help you move forward? I think sometimes it's a little bit more difficult when the sense of failure is based on what society is telling you, other than what yourself is telling you. Like, if you haven't got a job that's earning X amount of money, really, if you haven't got this, if you haven't got those material things that are supposed to be signs of success, if you like, and if you haven't got those, then there's already this sense of failure based on what society tells you success looks like. And so for me, in that space, it's about, you need to define what success is for you. That's a responsibility we each have. Well, when I talk about success, what does that truly mean to me? Otherwise, we're constantly benchmarking ourselves by these external markers that may not even mean anything to us, that may not align with our values or where we want to go or what we want to do. So why are we now looking at them and using them to decide how far we have or have not come?
absolutely, absolutely, and that's the thing. It's like we um, very often just go by what we hear, what we see, or what is expected, and we don't do the inward journey, the thing that matters to us. And to me, like, this is of course an ongoing work for many years now, but the values of ourselves, the values that we live by, these are the ones that are a better marker of whether we have succeeded or not. And if you follow your own values, I think success has a very different face, and it's there can't be ups and downs in our lives. We all have big things and things that are happening, even things that are out of our control, but still, if you have that perspective and your compass is the internal one, you will get there eventually. So to me, one thing, because I'm very optimistic, that's my character, but I always try and find the best in every situation. It's the norm for me. And sometimes when something happens and it's very hard to find that good thing in the situation, I feel like that something has happened, that I missed something, and that might feel a bit like putting me down. But on the other hand, that doesn't take long to realize that, okay, not everything can be controlled, and then try and find what is that one thing that you can control to get back into the swing of things, and align again with what you want. And I think that minimizes that sense of failure. Things might not happen exactly as you want. That's absolutely fine. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all these things need to be titled failure.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure actually in the work that you do when you're working with women around their careers, they're coming back into the workplace. And I know this because we've had conversations about it,
Yeah.
that they almost feel like failures before they've even started out, because it's like, but I've got nothing to offer. I've been out of the workplace for 10 years, and all of this stuff, and all they're doing is generating all these reasons why they're not enough. And that can already bring up those feelings of being a failure. Look, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s, and I haven't done anything, I haven't achieved anything, which is absolutely bonkers. I have yet to meet a woman and sit down and have a conversation and be able to say, no, you really haven't achieved anything, have you? It just never happened. It never happened. It's not true. It's like and I can remember when I used to work with women around wanting to transition from being an employee into starting their own business. And this used to come up a lot, but I've got no skills to bring forward. I've never had a business. I'm like, all the work that you've ever done in your life, write it down. Tell me all the things that you did in each of those roles. Write it down. And then there'd be pages and pages. And you're telling me you have no skills. This is the crazy stuff that we get caught up in, and the stories that we get caught up in that actually make us think that we've not got what we need to do the things we want to do. And it is just a falsehood. And I think it also applies to women who choose to stay at home with their children. It's like they often feel like completely like disassociated from the working world. It's like, but all I've done is stay at home. What do you mean all you've done? Do you know what it is to stay at home and look after the house and look after children? There's a lot of work that goes into that stuff,
Absolutely.
right? And all of that has value.
You just outlined, an exercise that I'm doing with all my clients. And that is the reason why we do that, because they need to see. I mean, it's not enough for anyone else to tell them. They need to see how much they can put on paper that they have done, that they have achieved. Because, we always think that we think so many thoughts and we know so many, like the things that go through our minds, basically a loop. And it goes on and on and on. It's the same thing. And you say the same story to yourself. And until you write things down, until you start, noticing, you really don't know what you know and what you can
Absolutely.
put forward and what has value. So yes, I know like exactly where you're coming from and what you're explaining there. And we tend as women to discount a lot of the things that we do, homemakers included. And I think that is one of the hardest things to do, and it involves so many transferable skills that nobody understands. When they start talking to me and I'm talking about transferable skills, they really cannot put their heads around it. And when we start talking about troubleshooting and about negotiating, about managing, and about like project managing and all these things, and we put them in context, oh my God, it opens up a whole new world for them.
Yes, it's the big aha.
That's it.
And a key skill that I believe comes from it also is leadership. When you're as a homemaker, you're leading your pack, and maybe pack is not the word that you would want to use, but you are leading. So the skills that are developed are so plentiful, and so this kind of comes back to, we need to be able to change the narrative around what, how we perceive failure and how we perceive the things that we're actually doing. Because yes, if we benchmark against societal outputs, then maybe there is always a sense of failure, because guess what, I haven't got 2.5 cars, I don't take 4 holidays a year, I haven't but actually, is that what you want to really measure yourself against? And certainly for me, I look at failure now when I have those things that don't go according to plan. I'm looking for the nugget. Okay, where's the nugget in here? Where's that piece of information that I need to have? Because I believe everything that happens has a purpose. There is a purpose within
Absolutely.
it. But we have the responsibility to look for it. It's not going to just necessarily jump out at us. We have to be able to. That's when we need to stop, slow down, reflect, and just say, okay, what is it that I need to take from this that is going to be useful for me moving forward? Because everything is about, I can take from this to help me move forward. Doesn't mean the situation suddenly disappears, but guess what? If we can get the nugget from it, then we have a better sense of what we need to do for the next
Absolutely.
part.
Yeah, and even if like the measure of success is like the 2 cars and the house and the 5 holidays and whatever, that's absolutely fine as well, because
Yeah.
what, like, each one of us knows what it is for themselves, and when you don't get it, you can find out why, and you can use the information to proceed and get closer to what you want. And I think that is the good thing. So failure, unless it is like marked as a bad thing, and only a bad thing, it can really benefit us, and that's the whole point. And I think that like the title of our discussion today, it just says it all. It's like there is something to be lost if you just accept failure as failure, and that's that. um I think that's
Yeah,
like the
absolutely.
perception is what needs to change, not
Yes.
really failure.
Yes, indeed. And if it, and sometimes it can be changing the language can be the thing that helps. So, if failure just has a really specific image for you in your head, find another word. Find another word when something doesn't go right, doesn't go the way you had expected, doesn't go in the way that you want. What is the word that you can use that helps you look at things through a different lens? Failure is not a word that lots of people like to hear, because they literally have almost like a physical reaction to it and what that means
Absolutely.
to them, based on the stories they've heard, based on what they've been told. You think about the school system. You failed that exam, you failed. There's a lot of connotations around that word. So I just think, look for a better word. So so for me, when things go wrong, I don't even think in terms of failure. I'm just thinking, okay, this didn't work out. What is it that I need to learn? What is my takeaway? Because this is the other part of the title of this, is the personal growth
Hmm.
element. And if we can look for the nuggets and we can take things away, that's our personal growth. And I can't think of an experience in my life where something has gone phenomenally not how I wanted it to go. Whether I want to call it a disaster or other, and I'm talking about my personal and professional life, where on reflection, I have not been able to say, oh. And sometimes it doesn't happen straight away. Sometimes it's been further down the road, but just thinking, oh, now I know. Now I know when that happened, what my lesson is from that, what I
For
can take from
sure.
that.
And this is because we don't really have the full picture. We never have the full picture. We think we do. We think we plan. We have like this big thing, whatever it comes our way, but it's not the case. We only have like a very limited understanding of our future, what's happening, or where we want to see ourselves. Maybe we know where we want to see ourselves in the long run, but we don't really know the exact steps to get there. And that's the reason why we have like maybe that one step forward, two backward scenario in some cases. But even that is a good thing, because it will eventually get you there. And the more I think you accept the fact that, okay, it's not a straight line towards whatever you want to do, the better you're going to deal with those zigzags, and get
Yeah.
the nugget, as you say, from them, and say, okay, next thing, until I get where I want to go. But I love that you don't call anything failure. I don't think that, especially for words that affect us physically, I think we really need to find better words. We really
Yes.
need to reframe them. And not I don't believe that we need to dismiss things from our
No.
lives, but we need to be aware of the feelings that they give us, and then either work with those, or like reframe them so we can feel different feelings, because that is what will give us the opportunity to
Yes.
see the nugget. Otherwise we're just
Yeah.
closing down and starting it sort of goes back to what we were saying last week, like that closing in, becoming isolated and invisible because of the failure, and you don't want people to know
Yeah.
what happened and why, and there's so much,
Yes.
and all this is a burden you don't have to carry.
Yeah.
um
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, language is so powerful. It always reminds me, I can remember at school when they used to have that stupid little saying, and it used to say, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me." I'm like, well, actually, that's a lie for starters, because,
it
actually the
is.
language that we use can be incredibly impactful. So one of the reasons why I won't dismiss the word failure, because it's a word, it
Yeah,
exists.
absolutely.
But my reason for not really using it for myself, and where I probably may discourage others to use it when something hasn't gone right, is because if they've had constant life experiences where they've been told they're a failure, and that has a deep rooted, unless they're ready to do the root work, positive
Yeah.
intelligence, just saying,
Yep.
um, that actually just thinking about the language and finding that more supportive language that helps them to say, okay, I can see that this is not where I wanted to be. This is not where I had expected to be. However, I have an opportunity to be curious and explore and see what I can take from it. There is something that I can pull out. It's a bit like when we get feedback, and people always say, it should be constructive feedback, absolutely. However, when somebody says something to us that hurts our feelings, we need to also be able to look at that and just saying, well, perhaps question ourselves, why does that feel the way that it feels for me, for one? And actually, within that feedback, what is true?
Yeah.
What do I want to pull from it? And actually, emotions aside, what can I take from it? So I just think that we need to always be mindful of the language that we use with each other and that we use with ourselves, because that here, when we're talking about women and how good we are at beating ourselves up, and how good we are at telling ourselves we haven't done enough, we're not enough, and all of that stuff, the language that we use when we are talking to ourselves or listening to ourselves, we need to be really aware of.
Absolutely. And there is a lady, I can't remember now her name. Her first name is Byron. Anyway, she has a fantastic framework, and uh, like the I'm not going to speak about the whole framework, but I'm going to say the couple of things in the beginning. She just bases everything in 5 questions, but the first question you should always ask when you are starting telling the story in your head is like, is this true? And how sure am I that this is true? Because when you start approaching things from this perspective, even something that is a failure in your mind, when you start questioning it, then you can start opening up possibilities and seeing the possibility that that might not really be as true as you think it is. And it is amazing because I have tried it on myself sometimes, and like it's like you're having a dialogue with yourself. It's part of our growth anyway. And when you start questioning like this directly, and then it seems like light bulbs are lighting everywhere, and you're like, okay, maybe it's not true. How can it not be true? And then you start having these discussions, and then you start doubting the doubt, and it is really good to sort of pull the idea apart
Yes.
and get more into the center of things and why this feels like a failure, because there are always underlying things that can cause it. And I mean, what you said about other people having told you all your life, blah 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 blah, this is what's happening. It's not
Yeah.
your story. It's like something that you've heard over and over and over again, and then that becomes your story. But is it really? Is it
Yeah.
true?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, and the power of asking yourselves questions, I think, is, a bit like having coaching, is that it makes you slow down. It makes you slow down and raises your awareness, because otherwise all you're doing is you're reacting. So
Yeah.
something doesn't go the way you expected. Oh, you stupid idiot! How can I be so stupid? And then your brain will immediately think of all the times you've been stupid and show them, so that you absolutely are cementing in there how stupid you are and how everything is awful, and you are a failure. So when you shift from that reactive, and you just stop the brain from kind of going into that immediate dialogue, and you just say, whoa, let me just ask myself some questions, you immediately have to slow down, right? You immediately
Absolutely.
now have to think things through, which gives you then the opportunity to say, okay, so how true is this? How many, I always find it interesting when people say, oh, everybody thinks that. I'm like, everybody?
No.
Like,
Yeah,
for me,
exactly.
even that, everybody, because we use this really flippant vocabulary, and actually no. It's like I was watching something the other, I think, when the football was on, and one of the journalists or presenters said, oh, everyone will be watching football tonight. I went, how do you know that? What makes you
Yeah.
say, I know but that's how quickly we use this language that cements very specific things. So our ability to just go, whoa, even if it appears just to say, hold on a moment, let me just step back. This is a good time to take 2 steps back, right? Go 2 steps,
Absolutely.
ooh, and really have a think. What in this scenario supports me being a failure, or having said the wrong thing, or whatever it is that you're questioning? What is it? Be very specific. Get to the specific, the heart of it. And if there's something, great. Well, what is that specific thing? Write it down. Be very clear what it is. And when you look at it, be able to say, is that the way it always is? Is that something I always do? Is that what I always say? Is that? Because then you can start to say, well, no, it isn't every single time, actually. It's okay. So it's not the failure you thought it was, and it's not the truth. It's a situation that has arisen, and X, Y, and Z, right? So I just think that, that very thing you said, that questioning gives us the opportunity to take 2 steps back, personally, literally take 2 steps back, and then look at it differently.
I mean, if we accept that our personal growth is an ongoing thing for all our lives, then what is it so bad about taking that step back and reflecting?
Yeah,
Nothing. It's actually that one step back that probably is going to propel us 3 steps forward if we do it properly. And I
yes,
love the writing bit, because it is at this stage, especially for whoever likes writing, that you will benefit from that if like you really reflect on the paper, because it creates evidence that you can go back and check again. And I think evidence is a very important word, and something to always look for our journey forward. And as you
absolutely.
said very well, we tend to, like, I always do this. I am very, very guilty of this. I like these generalizations or exaggerations. It might be, the Greek drama in me that does allow for this thing to come through. But I need to catch myself now and start questioning, like, why am I so fixated in that everyone, always, whatever? And it's sort of, once you stop doing that, it helps your communication as well, because you stop generalizing, and people
Yes,
uh, take you more seriously in a way,
yes.
because they see that you're not just generalizing. So that is a good thing.
Yeah,
Um,
it really is, and it definitely helps. In this situation where we're talking about, things not going right, things not going the way that we want, for us to be able to not then make the assumption that this is the way it always is going to be. This is, oh, every time I do this is what happens, or I move forward, and then this always happens. These become our most pressing barriers to progression and to growth, just getting hooked into these stories instead of actually just stepping back and just having a proper viewpoint and understanding, okay, yes, I've had a similar thing before, this isn't that, this is something else, and what am I going to take from it, what do I want to take from it? So for me, there is that real power, I think, in what you said, 1 step forward, 2 step back. There's nothing wrong with the 2 steps back, as long as you're using them for your benefit. Right.
Yeah.
And step back to reflect is a beautiful thing. Reflection is so underplayed, and reflection is so powerful.
And you know why it is underplayed? Because we live in a very fast society. Things are happening so quickly. So, who has time to reflect now? I mean, reflect is like a leisure thing, or that's how it presents itself. And, the thing is that, as you said, it's so underplayed, and it's like really works so much against each and every one of us. The time to reflect. There is no one autobiography that I have read from, like prominent people that they didn't take time to reflect. They always reflected, whether it was a daily habit or like, weekly, whatever they were doing, it was reflecting and planning are always part of their journeys. So why shouldn't we just embrace that? That is a very big question to ask, actually.
Absolutely. And I think if we can get into the habit when things do not go according to plan, because that's life, by the way, again, that very thing, there is no flat line, there is no perfect, just continue going up. It is a wiggly, waggly, zigzaggy, crazy thing that happens, but that's okay. But the whole point is giving ourselves that permission to reflect, to be able to look at things and be able to stop the reactiveness of life. Because yes, society, given the full reins of our life, would just have us giddying upping to the finishing line, seeing nothing, feeling nothing, hearing nothing, just going somewhere, and probably half the time not even knowing where we're going. Whereas if we take back those reins and we just say, okay, I want to explore, I want to understand for myself, I need to be able to slow down, to be able to reflect, to be able to make sense of this. And instead of seeing this thing as a failure, actually just seeing it as a lesson. This is a learning opportunity for me, and I'm going to look for the lesson and really focus on looking for the lesson.
Yeah, I think that that is exactly what is. Let's focus on the lesson. There is no such thing as failure. There are setbacks, and we all have them. But that's life. That's the game that we have to learn how to play. And the better we play it, the better we're going to be at it. And I suppose that's why when we get a little bit older, not too old, a little bit older, we are getting a little bit more adept to moving forward with things that are thrown our way. Because yes, you can plan as much as you like, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go as planned. You will get there, but in a way,
not always the way that you thought you were going to get there. So I think that's the important thing to remember. You'll get there, but not always the way that you think. And that's the importance of taking lessons and knowing that it's part of your growth. Get the lesson. How has that helped me to grow? I will guarantee if you went back over your timeline, there will be things, even some very difficult things, that you have learned something from that has helped you to either not go back to that place or just go in a different direction. They are the lessons that are part of the growth. And we are all here to grow. There's not a human being on the planet. This is where I will generalize. There's not a human being on the planet who isn't meant to grow. Whether they do or not, whether we choose to or not, is a very different thing. That's a different conversation.
But this is exactly, and this is part of the control, what we have control over. Our own growth, we definitely have control over. So
Indeed. And so with that, I think I want to finish. The thing that I want to finish with my wrap up is this is the importance of sharing your journey. And I don't mean sharing every blip and every piece and every whatever, but when you have gone through a challenging situation, when you have felt like a failure, when you have felt like, I can't see the light for the darkness, but you have got to the other side, that's gold. That's gold for somebody else. It's not just the lesson that it is for you. That's a lesson you can put out for somebody else, because somebody else probably needs to hear it. Somebody else is probably waiting to hear it. There's somebody else who thinks they're the only person going through what they're going through. So those moments of, inverted commas failure are the lessons that you get to share with somebody else and to help them get to their light, not just yours.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is the way I think we should close today. Just um,
Yeah,
there is nothing you can do about things not going as you planned, but there is always something to do about learning from what happened. So
absolutely.
this
Yeah.
is what I would like
This,
to leave you with.
yeah. And learn and grow and keep learning and growing and understanding every experience is an opportunity for that. And I think when you focus on the fact that this is all about my growth, you get a little bit more accepting of those moments. You can just be a little bit more
Absolutely.
accepting of them, because it's part of what is going to give you the power and the aspirations and the opportunities to get to that place that you're heading to.
Yep,
There we have
absolutely.
it. Fabulous. Well, listen, I'm going to sign. We're going to sign off now, but just to let you know that there is a chance we won't be live next week. We're going to have a little discussion about that. There is an opportunity. We may be, we may not be. But either way, if we're not live next week, we will definitely be back the week after that. And until then, please post comments, thoughts under the video. We want you to be part of the conversation. That's the most important thing of all. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thanks, Evie.